Honor, please, just for a moment.
Yes. This is Paul Mason from Ipswich. He weighs in at 70 stone and he's been in the headlines with the revelation that his treatment cost the NHS £100,000 a year.
Should the taxpayer really be footing that bill? We asked a super slimmer, Charlie Waldock, to look into the price we're all paying for a country piling on the pounds.
I struggled to walk down the stairs. I found it hard to get out of the chair. I needed a taxi to get to the end of the road, but that's because I was 50 stone.
I'm now 35 stone lighter, and no one knows better than me how hard it is to lose weight. By 2050, half the nation could be obese, and those extra pounds aren't just on our waistlines either. Experts reckon it could cost the NHS a whopping £10 billion.
Last month, Paul Mason hit the headlines when his 20,000 calorie a day diet had caused the NHS to splash nearly £1 million on his care. But Britain is bursting with similar stories. In Scotland, the number of gastric bypass operations has risen by nearly 700% in the last 4 years. The London Fire Service spends £60,000 annually rescuing excessively overweight people trapped in beds, chairs and baths. And in Bristol, the local NHS has spent £600,000 on reinforced furniture and equipment. So with some local health trusts increasing their obesity budget sevenfold, what happens when a large person needs to go to hospital? They get picked up by one of these.
So this is a bariatric ambulance. How much does one of these cost?
Well, this particular vehicle would cost around about £100,000, which is on average about a third more than a standard ambulance. It looks exactly the same as a normal ambulance, but what you can't see is the reinforced flooring, the reinforced suspension, and the obvious noticeable difference is the tail lift, which is wider and obviously a lot stronger.
So what about the equipment itself?
Well, the difference in equipment is predominantly the stretcher. Now, that's a lot wider stretcher than a standard stretcher and also take up to about 70 stone. That stretcher, all encompassing, is about £16,000.
16,000.
A standard stretcher is about £8,000.
But it's not just ambulances. Hospitals across the country are shelling out cash for supersized beds, trolleys and even mortuary fridges, with some figures suggesting that the average hospital spends £60,000. But should we really be prepared for the NHS to foot the bill? Experts question why the greed of some means other health services will effectively be starved of resources.
I have very little sympathy with people who just eat and eat and eat themselves and expect the NHS to clear up after them. Particularly what concerns me is the tragedy that they're taking up hospital space, hospital operating theatres, hospital staff, when somebody who needs it more may not actually have access to that service at the time that it is required.
Given that lots of people are obese, whose responsibility is it?
There are so many messages out there now which tell people that healthy living and healthy lifestyle has to be the answer to obesity. If they don't pay any attention to it, that is, in a sense, their fault.
Campaigner Fatima rejects that idea. She celebrates her larger size and believes that the NHS should support people like her, whatever the cost.
It seems to me that only fat people are not allowed to be sick. But thin people can be poorly. But if you're fat, you're bad.
A lot of illnesses are related to being obese, though.
That is what is being sold.
Diabetes,
yes,
cancer,
yes, it is scare tactics.
high blood pressure.
High blood pressure. If a doctor gets a high blood pressure thin person, what is he going to prescribe? What is he going to ask them? Lose weight, like he would say to me? So the message shouldn't be, don't be fat because you're going to drain the NHS. Is try and look after your health, fat or thin.
That's common sense, but I know that obese people do need extra help. Thankfully, here in Rotherham, where 60% of adults and 30% of children are obese, they're pioneering just that.
Well, basically, a long time ago when I started off as a GP, I realised that all of us in primary care spend all of our time treating conditions like diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And it made me realise that we're actually treating the consequences of obesity, and if we took that little step further back and start treating the cause, then we'd actually save the NHS a lot of money in the long run. We're not reinventing the wheel. We've got all of the services that you could possibly hope for all in one place. We have the facilities and the ability to actually see thousands of patients over the next few years, and as often as we need to.
With the national NHS bill for tackling Fat Britain over £4 billion a year, perhaps cash invested in Rotherham to combat the causes is money well spent.
First of all, we're talking about regular soda, right? Not diet.
That's right. We're talking about regular soda because, Kieran, the culprit here appears to be the sheer amount of sugar that you get in sodas. What this study did is it found that people who drink on average about 5 sodas a week have about an 87% increased risk of getting pancreatic cancer. Now that is a huge number, an 87% increased chance of getting pancreatic cancer. But want to keep in mind here, this is not a perfect study. There were only 140 people with pancreatic cancer in this study. But what it basically points to is this. Sodas have quite a bit of sugar in them. In fact, I don't know if you can see, but I've gathered together here all the sugar that you would have. You probably can't. We're talking lots of bags of sugar, tons of bags, 100 bags of sugar if you're drinking 5 sodas a week, 100 bags of sugar. What that can do is that can make you fat, and it can also increase your chance of getting diabetes, both of which put you at a higher risk of pancreatic cancer. Kira?
So it's not just soda, then it could be any large amount of sugar, meaning if you're getting it from juices, if you're getting it from other things, if you're taking in a lot of sugar, you're upping your chances of getting pancreatic cancer?
Well, you know, it's interesting. In this study, they did find that people who drank a lot of juice also had an increased risk of getting pancreatic cancer, but it wasn't nearly the same amount. It wasn't along the same lines as the soda. But yes, being overweight will put you at an increased risk of getting pancreatic cancer, and some people get overweight by just drinking too many sugary drinks.
And in general, what are your chances of getting pancreatic cancer as a cancer?
I mean, it's very small. The risk of getting pancreatic cancer is much smaller than, say, getting colon cancer or breast cancer or something like that. But the issue with pancreatic cancer is it is so hard to treat, so that your chances of dying from it, if you get it, are relatively high compared to something like a colon cancer or a breast cancer.
What does the beverage industry have to say about this? I'm sure that they're not pleased with this study.
You know, they're not pleased with the study, and I got to tell you, a lot of actual real researchers, apart from the soda industry, aren't pleased either. It's not a perfect study, but let's listen to what let's hear what the American Beverage Association says. They say that the authors are skipping several steps in trying to make this link between soft drinks and pancreatic cancer. The fact remains that soft drinks do not cause cancer. You can be a healthy person and enjoy soft drinks. And again, I really want to emphasize here, a lot of people saying that this is not a perfect study, but it really may point to this whole issue that you really need to keep your weight down to decrease your chance of getting pancreatic cancer.